And Jared's
It is 2 o'clock.
gonna be on Zoom, I think.
Yes.
Well, there she is. Thank you. Oh, yeah, there she is.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Here.
Ms. Monroe Naylor,
Here.
and then for legislative and contracts, Ms. Monroe Naylor,
Present.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Ms. Hurst is absent.
I asked Terry to put the voting items first so that anybody who's here, we don't delay people if there's any long discussion later.
Okay.
So the first one is to recommend a full school committee expenditure of $35,000 for the Massachusetts Department. You read it. Go ahead and read it.
2025 Interpreter and Education Training Grant.
You want to explain that, Pat, or?
Sure.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yes, please.
You're welcome. Of course, Martha. Thank you.
So before our team starts, I'm just going to share some insights and overview of this great opportunity. I remember working in Hartford, Connecticut in Hartford Public Schools, and they had this amazing apparatus that would translate all of the community events and provide translation services on the spot, real time. And as soon as I had the opportunity to start this position in July 15th, I spoke to Azelle, our Chief of Communications, and I expressed to her our desire to make sure that every community event had translation services. I think this is a step in the right direction. We're moving towards that vision of ensuring that all of our families, no matter where they are, meeting with us, learning with us, growing with us, they have the opportunity to hear it in their primary language. So although this does not meet the future need, the vision, it's a step in the right direction. So I will let those who are intimately acquainted with this go ahead and explain it.
Thank you, Dr. Denal. And I appreciate that. It is a huge step in the right direction. This grant will provide tier 1 training, which is something the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education will down the road be requiring of all interpreters. Through this grant, we'll be able to provide tier 1 training for all our interpreters within the district. So it's a collaboration between interpreters in the special ed department, the MLL department, and FACE. So 28 individuals will be tier 1 trained and just be able to provide much higher quality in interpretation to all of our families.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay, so I know that we have interpretation services at some level, right? Which is where this is kind of stemming from. But can you explain what this looks like as far as somebody who may speak a language that we don't even know about? That maybe, I know there's certain dialects, especially from Africa, where a student from, and maybe one person in the region knows how to speak that language. How do we address the needs of those students?
Of course, I'm here with Michael Barachi, who is our coordinator for interpretation and translation services, and will be able to answer.
Hi there. It's a pleasure to be here. So this training program is not only offered to our primary interpreters who interpret in Spanish, but also it's going to be offered to our bilingual family liaisons from the multilingual language department, the MLL department, which we have Somali, Swahili, we have Vietnamese, we have Arabic, and I believe we also have a Pashto and Persian bilingual family liaison in the district. So this course is going to be offered to those family liaisons as well in order for them to be trained at, it's not the tier 1, it's the tier 2 level. And what that means is they're going to be approved by DESE to be able to interpret at the school level for any meetings that don't have a legal implication. So that would be a parent-teacher conference, or that would be a staff meeting. It could also be for open houses and events that are going on at the school level during or after school hours.
Just a follow-up to that. So for students who it may be a legal conversation. So if it's something around 504 IEPs or things of that nature, do we have something in place for those students?
We do have, so there is no requirement to have and I apologize, I misspoke. It is tier 2 and tier 3 training.
Okay.
There is no requirement. The tier 3 training is what specializes the trainers to the next level of being able to have training for 504 and IEP meetings. It's something that we're looking into to try to bring that so the high caliber of training is for all our interpreters. But no, this grant would not cover the tier 3 training.
Okay.
But that is available, and it's something that Michael and I are discussing how we can bring that to our interpreters.
Okay. Thank you.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Destia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, and we don't have anybody participating remotely, so I guess that should be okay. The second one is vote to recommend the school committee approve expenditure of $373,486.11 from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary Secondary Education for FY 2025 intensive assistance grant. Superintendent?
Thank you, sir. So this grant is very exciting, as we know that we have 2 remaining middle schools in our district. And one of the primary things that we're going to be focusing on is transforming our middle schools. So this IAG will give South End Middle School and Principal Gonzalez and her team an opportunity to elevate the work, to innovate, and to just be very forward thinking when it comes to how we are creating a learning experience for our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that will position them to be well prepared for the 9th grade and beyond. So we're looking at utilizing these funds to really create something different. What we were doing in the past hasn't been working. We recognize that. So now we're going to innovate, we're going to pivot, we're going to redirect our efforts, and these funds will allow us to do so. I'm going to invite Dr. Johnson and Dr. Balch to the table, please. And of course, Principal Gonzalez, thank you for joining us.
Hi,
I'm
good
gonna let
afternoon,
you all lead
everybody.
the conversation.
Thank you for allowing me to join on Zoom. As you know, we have our back to school event going on, but I am excited to be here to speak on the intensive assistance grant and answer any questions along with Dr. Balch and Dr. Johnson.
I always have a question. Yeah. Okay, so my question is this planning and implement, like, are we sure what we're doing, or is it like part of the grant is to do the assessment of what's necessary?
So the way the grant, what we had to work with the statewide systems support team. So DESI partners, they came in, they worked with us last year, Yara, her team, academics, to really identify the area of focus. So last year was the planning phase.
Okay.
We submitted our draft to the state. They gave us feedback on it. A big part of the plan focuses on early literacy. So we know that our secondary teachers might not have those literacy strategies. So a lot of it is focused on professional development to really shore up those skills, so that the entire staff at South End Middle School is going to have this intense training to really focus on those literacy, vocabulary, those skill development to help our middle school students to address those gaps. And then the second part of this is really focused around making sure the right people are there. Reading interventionist is going to be at South End Middle School, really helping teach those teachers, and then making sure that we have turnaround teachers there, the right teachers with the right skills, and incentivizing them doing that work at South End.
So what is the plan for sustaining if we have to add staff?
So this is a 3-year grant. So it's $1 million over the 3 years.
Oh.
So I think once we get the right staff there, we get the work going, we don't necessarily need to identify it as a critical needs school anymore. So the sustainability plans are sort of embedded in this, but it is a 3-year plan.
Okay. Thank you.
I just want to add that we are so excited, prior to coming to South End, I was at the high school and we always would hear time and time again from content teachers that they just didn't have the skills and the knowledge to address literacy gaps. So we are so excited to be able to utilize this funds to support educators in growing in their practice, which will ultimately help us to support students and help them be more successful when they get to high school and beyond for post-secondary plans.
I made sure, thank you. I just had a question. I don't know who this is for, Superintendent, Dr. Denal. In my time here, my short time here, the 3 years I've been in the committee, I've yet to see a grant, and perhaps it's because my memory doesn't serve me correctly, that for 1 year, the professional salaries and the 3 line items, in addition to the fringes and other costs, they seem, it seems like a lot of money for a small school. So I'm just curious, I'm not a practitioner, so I just want to know what I'm voting on and what's the intentionality behind that. And just so the public knows, it's 150,000, 25,000. There's also 76,000 for, perhaps I'm understanding probably that as one FTE. The other $175,000 appears to be in stipends for teachers, which I agree that we need to incentivize. They're doing that extra work. I'm just curious, what does that look like on the ground and kind of the justification behind that?
That is an excellent question. Thank you so much for asking it. I'm going to defer to those who were the authors of this grant before my arrival.
Okay.
So the FTE, that one FTE is for the reading interventionist position. The other large bucket is the stipends for teachers. And that includes the work that they have to do, the training. It's an intensive training and it's done after school. It's going to be about 40 hours per teacher to go through this training to get the certification. So that's included, and also that critical needs stipend. There are about 30 teachers at South End.
Yes.
So spreading that out between 5 to 3, it's tiered stipends for those.
And Mr. Roach, if you could just help out as our CFO, have we done these before and these amounts for one school to do intervention?
So when we have a school that's in lower performing status, the state's given us money to do these types of interventions. The certified reading specialist, I mean, I think it sounds like an excellent plan. And, when you add positions on a grant like this, you need to know that if the grant goes away, either the position goes away or we have to make a decision, when we're doing the annual budget to fund it. And then the stipends, the 25,000, that's one-time work. So you're making a one-time investment. It's a pretty good use of one-time funds. The critical needs stipends, you're giving to staff, and you just need to know that when the grant goes away, so does that extra compensation they've been receiving.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate all those answers.
There's some historical perspective. Back when we had 10 elementary schools in the same status, they got similar grants and they were spent in similar ways. It was prior to you being on, Desire.
Okay.
So I'm just giving you some history. So it's not the first time that this path has been followed.
All right. Thank you so much.
The one other part that I'd like to highlight too is that part of the grant, it was the initial drafting, it was the acceptance, and there was an interview part, and they interviewed Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Green, and because of their demonstrated leadership and the Department of Elementary and Secondary's faith in them to articulate this plan and to really lead the work was the third part of this. So they did such a phenomenal job during the interview that really convinced that, we had to demonstrate that our leaders were poised and ready to do this work as well. So that was the third piece of that. So great job to you.
Thank you, Michelle. It was a true collaboration. This work is really rewarding work, and turnaround work is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy work. It's very hard work. And we want to make sure that, you know, our teachers, in understanding that, know that they will be compensated for that as well. Because the idea is if we front load this work, then in 3 years, we're poised to not have to put in this amount of time and effort into turnaround because kids will be ready for high school and beyond.
Just one additional thing, Josiah, is all 10 of those schools that got this kind of grant all exited status. So they do work. We do have a history with them.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to recommend to the full school committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So ordered. Thank you. The third item is vote to recommend to the full school committee to approve the FY 2025 amended budget per the attached schedule.
The first thing I'd like to do is just give you a quick handout and I can walk you through. So we do this each year in the fall. And what happens is the city passes their budget after the school committee, and then so does the state. So we have to do a little housekeeping to clean it up. And the first document that I'm handing you just kind of shows you where the final numbers ended up on the budget. And you can see chapter 70, there was a little extra money that came in, 587,000. Oh yes, sorry about that. The city of Springfield's contribution stayed the same. Schedule 19 indirect costs, the state released their per pupil amount after the fact. So when we updated it, it reduced our budget by 124,000. The state updated the charter tuition line item, and you can see it reduced our budget by 142,000 there. Other revenue, there was an adjustment there of 129,000. And then transportation, adult ed and leases, we went up $2.4 million there. And I'll get into that a little more on the second page. But what happened was we had gone out to bid last year and we had used some assumptions in our budget. And when we got our final numbers, they came in significantly higher. So that's why transportation went up. So that kind of walks you through the revenue piece of the 2.591 million that we needed to solve for. So now if you go to the memo in the attached schedule, these are our recommendations on how to adjust the line items in order to make sure we have a balanced budget. So what you'll see is increasing the business office, business and financial services, $2.5 million. Most of that is going into transportation. And then there's a reduction into lost time, which is a salary savings based on vacancies.
Mhm.
Then a reduction to the curriculum instruction line item for the pre-K investment. That was an additional 250,000 that the city used to give us above net school spending. And in order to help the city balance their budget, they reduced that line item, but didn't have an impact on us because we were able to sustain that. It was some great investment to help us scale our program. And now that we're at scale, we don't really need it as much anymore. The third one is a $320,000 adjustment to school operations. And we had to increase the charter tuition line item. The state updated their final assessments in the final state budget, and it was $913,000 higher. Because of the way we're formulaic with the empowerment zone, when all these numbers change, we have to update our formula, which adjusts the empowerment zone by $44,000. And then we're recommending a reduction to the salary reserve line item of $637,000. And that's some money that we reserve in case we need to adjust staffing when we get our final student enrollments. And we think we're on a pretty good track and there's no staffing impact by adjusting that line item. It's a reserve account. And then on the back of that, you can see that's how it plays out in the budget and what the new total would be to the school committee's adopted budget. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
I have a question. With the funds here, just so I clarify what I'm understanding here.
Mhm.
That you presented. So the original budget was the amount that we anticipated all of our expenses. The revised is what the reality is of what we're looking at as actual expenses. We did have some money that we had in reserves.
Mhm.
Is any of that money being utilized for any of these adjustments?
So we are using the reserves that are in a staffing reserve, of which is money that the superintendent would usually use to adjust staffing in the fall. It's not any of the reserve money that was for the school committee positions. The reserve money we put in the committee's budget is still there. And then the district-wide reserves that we use sometimes, like if snow gets too big and things like that, that's still there as well.
My second question is, were there other cuts made that are not here? Because I got notification that we had a program that was decreased. And I wanted to understand, was that in this budget or was that funds from other places?
There were every cut to the general fund budget, every adjustment that's being made is right in front of you and I've gone over it. So if there's a different program you want me to look into, I'm happy to, but it's not part of this.
It's the adaptive music program?
Okay, as far as I know, it wasn't cut, and it's funded in the budget, so I'm happy to look into that.
Okay, please do, because we had a certain amount that we had allocated during our meeting when we voted on it. And I don't know if it was a misunderstanding, but I was notified by folks that are on that other side running the program that they were cut almost in half.
It's on a grant, and I will happily follow up on that and get back to you.
Thank you. As you know, our special needs students are very important to me. I want to make sure we're not leaving schools to fend for themselves when it comes to the needs of our students who are our most precious.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have for now.
Ms. Zia, do you have questions on this?
No, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roach.
No problem. Thank you.
much.
Get that.
What's the next one? Oh, the executive vote to recommend to the school committee that approve the confidential senior executive assistant to the superintendent of schools.
Williams.
Good afternoon. Before you in your packet, you will have the confidential senior executive assistant to the superintendent job description, as well as the executive confidential assistant to the school committee's job description. They will be posted if you approve at the same time. So I tried to kind of differentiate between the two. These are drafts, so anything that you would like added or changed, I can do so.
I have a general question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking at the job experience and requirement. So the general question that I have is, for this particular position, this is basically the individual that will report directly to our superintendent.
The confidential senior assistant, yes.
Okay, and they will not be working at all with the school committee, or is it only Dr. Jamal?
They'll be working with Dr. Denal, and if there's something that you need jointly, I think Dr. Denal would approve that you do that.
Absolutely, in collaboration.
So the only reason why I led with that is I feel it's more important for us to know what you need and what you identify as to what you need for support versus me to make an opinion as to what it is that I think you need for support. If they're not working with the school committee other than as needed, that's my feeling about it. So I don't really have any feedback on the position.
Yeah, I just, I had a general question, for you, Ms. Williams. I know that the, legislature and the governor, they released the wage, transparency, for, equity reasons, which I think was wonderful. Do you know when that's going to be mandated to folks to start?
Top of my head, I do not, but I can look into that for you.
Because I'm wondering whether or not we are, supposed to be doing that now moving forward to start posting the, because I know smaller organizations or entities don't have to do it, but the district, I believe, would fall into that category. So I just wanted to put that on our radar.
Thank you. And we usually will get notification to do that. I haven't gotten any as such yet, but it should be coming.
I just saw it on the news. That's all. That's why I wanted to bring it forward.
Val, if you look at the second page of executive confidential assistant to the school committee.
Yes.
I see you added, after we talked, the coordinates with confidential senior executive assistant to the superintendent. Could you put similar language in the one for the superintendent? Because what Harry and Patty had was a real team, so I think that's why I wanted that added in there, so that it shows, same point I think what Tony was making about them coordinating and knowing what's going on. So if we could have similar language in both, I think that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments
So moved.
as amended? Right?
Yes.
Okay.
As amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You know what? I think just to be safe, since they're listed separately, we'll take separate votes. I'll assume that one was for the item one, which was executive assistant to the superintendent. Can we have another motion for executive assistant?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Vote to recommend to the full school committee that it approve Springfield Public Schools legal counsel.
So in your packet, you have the school legal counsel, that one that's labeled. This will be for the legal counsel that is for the school department itself. And the other posting that you have is the legal counsel for the school committee. The item that you're looking at now will be just the school legal counsel. And that position will just be for the.
That's the in-house attorney.
I have one. I have school.
At the bottom. Keep going in your pile.
Oh, okay.
Is there another one?
Yes, I think it's the last one in your packet.
Oh, okay.
Is it?
Thank you. Yeah.
I got it.
Is there an amended one there? For the first one or no?
No, so you should have one that's.
Oh, that's the
School
school.
counsel, and the other one's the legal counsel for the school committee. So the school legal counsel will be the school department's in-house counsel. And that is the job description for that one.
Okay. I did have one question about this. I have two questions. First one is, I don't know if we're able to answer this right now, but are we hiring a new legal counsel soon? Because I was informed we
Yes.
may be.
I'm sorry.
I was informed that we maybe need a new counsel. I never received a notification, not that I know of that.
I know,
We're gonna-
I didn't get a notification about legal counsel.
We
Yeah.
had asked that we create separate ones during the budget process, if you recall.
No, not that. I'm saying our current legal counsel that we are
Oh.
supposed to have, that I heard that they were leaving. And I wasn't informed that they were. So I'm just wanting clarification as to, do we have legal counsel currently? And if,
Currently, yes, we do have legal counsel.
and are they leaving at some point in the near future?
Yes, they will be.
Okay, because we would love to get a notification as a school committee about that. Thank you. Okay, so I'm back to this. So the school legal counsel is the person that would represent the district on matters pertaining to the district. Yes, stuff.
That'll be our in-house counsel
Okay,
for the school department.
okay. I had one question.
Yes.
It was where it says knowledge of SPS policies, priorities, and objectives. I would strongly recommend that we remove that so that we don't limit people who may want to apply, who may not have that level of knowledge. Those are things I think people can learn
I have it.
on the second page.
I have similar concerns as you, Latonia, but to a number of them.
Yeah.
That could limit the pool significantly for Dr. Denal looking for an attorney.
Okay.
Because wish I had brought some notes with me. Public administration and school operations. I think there's some of these, obviously Juris Doctorate and licensed practice law, some knowledge, for some of these are absolute requirements and some of them should be preferred to give. Otherwise, if you create it so tight, the superintendent may never find somebody that fits. If all of there aren't that many people in the state that do this for a living full time. So you might find somebody who has 80% of it and some knowledge in the other, but if you put it's a requirement, we're going to hamstring the superintendent. I don't want to do that. I want her to have a pool that she can work with. So I think we need to have some of these become preferred rather than required.
Okay. And which will those be?
Well, let's go. Our doctorate obviously is mandatory. License is mandatory. Federal, state laws, regulations applicable to K-12 schools. What do you guys think? Should that be mandatory or preferred? I mean, knowledge is okay, I guess.
Yeah, I think that one's good to keep.
Okay.
Demonstrate ability to interface with public school committees. That, I think that ought to be preferred, because what if we get an attorney who has worked with like city councils or worked with town government or not, and not school committee itself?
It says preferred at the end of that sentence.
Does?
You know,
Which sentence are you looking
Where
at?
does it say preferred?
interface with publicly elected school committees, the education community, and the public, preferred. It ends with preferred.
Oh, I don't have that one.
Not on mine.
Oh, it does say it on this.
No problem.
You guys are looking at two different ones.
Oh, he's, okay.
Are we working off two different?
We're looking at this book.
I'm looking at ours.
Okay. All right. We got along somewhere.
No worries, no worries. It's just a word.
We didn't have two.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
you're looking at this one now, Mr.
Mhm.
Gonzalez? Okay, good. So it does say preferred on the other one. So yeah, just the mirror,
Okay.
that one should say preferred. I agree.
That was the fourth bullet, right?
Yes.
Knowledge, next one is principles, practices, public administration, intergovernmental and school business operations. I would say preferred for that as well.
Okay.
Knowledge of methods, procedures required to provide legal services to an administration and governing body of large urban districts. Well, that, now here it does say preferred.
Mm-hmm.
So the, maybe, okay, let's make sure the rest of them then, and then maybe the title needs to be requirements, and, or either that or we separate out all the ones that have preferred and have it.
Have
a
two
different-
sections.
Have two sections, because I'd get confused if I was reading this.
Okay.
Knowledge of current local, state, federal issues related to public schools, pre-K, public education.
I think that's required.
Okay, I can go along. I'm just, we're going through one at a time. Whatever people, the majority of us think, I think is, we just don't, we all, I don't think, want to limit the pool for the superintendent. Knowledge of SPS policies and priorities. You already acknowledged you thought that should be preferred, right?
Yes.
I don't know if it should even be there, to be honest.
Which one?
The knowledge of SPS policies, because preferred still, I mean, I guess preferred would be if that was the agreement of the majority, that we put it preferred. I just don't like the idea of restricting people to SPS.
Well, it's policies, priorities, and objectives, so it's three different, it's
Right.
really kind of inclusive. And I think, again, that would be a judgment. This is a superintendent hire, where they know kind of our priorities and our objectives are kind of weekend policies. That's a judgment call. If it says preferred, that becomes a judgment call.
Okay.
Would you like preferred there?
I'm willing to concede.
Knowledge of constitutional, administrative law, juvenile law, student rights, discipline in school law, contract law, employment law, Robert's Rules of Order, and other laws and rules responsible related to representing and advising the SPS. Very inclusive one. Let's see. So we have constitutional, administrative, juvenile, student rights, discipline. What do you think, Superintendent? Do you think with all of that in it, do you think it would be required or preferred? What, do you have an opinion on it, Superintendent?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on that bullet. I would say it is pretty broad yet specific. I definitely would think that should be preferred because I feel that those things can be learned. Any lawyer applying will most likely have some general knowledge of Massachusetts laws and things of that nature. And I know that there'll be a quick study and be able to double down and do their homework to be prepared. So it can be preferred.
Did you disagree with anything we've said so far? Because we,
No.
okay, just.
No.
Then I would go with what the superintendent's thoughts are. If everybody else is okay, that's on that it be preferred.
That's fine.
Knowledge of current issues and special challenges to large urban districts and their communities. Preferred. Did I hear the superintendent say preferred? At least my ears aren't blocked. Nothing else is working.
I think everything else, below after that says ability, demonstrated professional, I would say that those are, requirements.
Okay.
I just wanted to see.
Prepare legal, yeah, I agree. Oversee, prepare. Well, yeah, you should be able to interpret whether it's, if you interpret a decision, whether it's city business or school business, that's pretty similar. Private public entities. Ability to manage. I agree with you, Mr. Gonzalez, that those probably should all remain as requirements. Do you, Superintendent?
Absolutely. Good call. Good call.
I think that will make it easier for people who are looking to apply to understand, and it will create a better pool for you to choose from.
I agree. Thank you for looking out for that.
I've seen people post jobs that are so tight that you get no applicants.
True.
That's not gonna help us.
So moved
Okay.
with amendments.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Recommend approve, oh, we did that. Vote to recommend the full committee to accept policy ACA. There's someone who's gonna.
Chief Willie. He's gonna stay here for a little while.
Currently, Springfield Public Schools receives about $23 million in Title I funding. And as part of receiving,
May I interrupt you just a second? So we had two different positions. Are we only voting on one today?
I think it's later on in the,
Oh, it's later?
Are you in discussion?
Oh, okay, it's a discussion. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure I'm on the same page as everybody. Okay. Appreciate you.
I think I skipped, so you want to do AC first?
Never have to ask permission, just come on up.
Oh, it's AC.
I do. Sorry, thanks.
CA.
You want to go on that side or come over here? I can do whatever you. Oh, you need to sit. Thank you. I want you to sit. Thank you.
Katie O'Sullivan is also here from HR to support the understanding of AC and ACA.
Okay, thank you.
Pull up the website first.
Springfield is a Title I district. So we receive currently about $23 million from the federal government. And as a recipient of this funding, there are certain requirements that we are mandated to do, such as Title IX. In 2024, the language for Title IX has changed. And so all districts that receive funding are required to make these changes to their policies in the district. Well, Katie O'Sullivan is our dynamic Title IX coordinator, and she'll be updating you with some of the changes that we're going to be making or amending or presenting to you. And with the assistance of the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, they provided Massachusetts districts with a template that we can use to have for the policy changes that were being made. And in conjunction with the SEA, our HR department, as well as our legal department, we negotiated and reviewed and collaborated with the policies that you're going to see before you. So that would be the A1C, the AC, which is the non-discrimination policy, including harassment and retaliation. Basically, this is the template that was provided from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. And some of the language was again negotiated with the SCA as well as the HR department and the legal department to comply with the 2024 guidelines. And when Katie goes through what she's going to show you in a minute is one of the requirements is that we had to post on our webpage, a non-discrimination tab. And on that tab, all of these things had to be listed, which we'll go over with you. But that was one of the biggest requirements of the 2024 changes. So we have all of it posted. And if Katie, if you click on the first one with the non-discrimination, it is posted to our webpage. And if Katie can scroll up a little bit.
Yep, I sure can.
That's where the title is. So you can see it says it's in the draft stage. It's pending approval from the school committee. So as of today, we are in compliance with the federal government that it is posted to the website, just pending approval by the school committee so that we're not in violation of losing any funding from Title I. So the A1C is a non-discrimination policy for the harassment and retaliation, which the Title IX required us to do. And the next one that we have is the ACA, which was discrimination on the basis of sex. And basically what they're doing is we have to spell out all of our policies. We have to show information step by step on if there's an issue or problem, where they can go, who they can talk to, and the grievances procedures step by step. Everything has to be laid out on our website and easy and accessible for all.
Question about the policy with the discusses. Sure, I'm not asking a question on it. Okay, so where it talks about the ability for staff to file grievances and things of that nature, is that applicable to staff that have to be in a direct report line, or is it in general?
It's in general, it's staff to staff, any employee to employee. So it can be teacher to bus driver, it can be senior administrator to teacher. So these policies are employee to employee, employee to student, student to student.
Wonderful. And so outside of this information here that folks will have access to readily accessible to them, if someone has a complaint, they will go to you as a Title IX coordinator.
To Katie.
Okay, to Katie.
We're gonna walk you through a slide of that.
Okay, thank you.
And all of her information had to be displayed on the site, readily available for people. So there's a, when Katie gets to that, there's an actual box where it says grievances processes, and Katie is labeled there with all of her contact information.
No, I probably should wait till you do the presentation to ask this last question. I know they did an extensive presentation on this at the Leadership Institute for MASC this summer. And one of the things that came up a lot was athletics and the discrimination, especially for females when it comes to athletics. And not just accessibility, but even treatment, whether it's the boys getting a bus that's fancy and the girls having to get on a bumpy bus that's not comfortable, or not getting new uniforms, you know, just certain practices that are inequitable, as well as, so sometimes the discrimination may be a direct person, but sometimes the discrimination is the system. And so being able to understand how to differentiate that and educate folks on what that means, or how we deal with reporting those variations of it. So anyways, I just wanted to share that.
We've also had to, in turn with the 2024 regulations, the entire staff or any employee has to be retrained, which we're in the process of doing right now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Collins, I would like to make a motion to vote to recommend to the full school committee that it accept policy AC.
Oh, they were getting ready to give us a presentation, right?
Yes, but that's under the updates.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Well, Mr. Gonzalez is moving so fast. I'm trying to slow down. That's why I'm only have 4 children and get ready for school next week. So I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
also like to make a motion that we vote to recommend to the full school committee that it accept policy ACA. Thank you guys, ladies, went over both of them.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
These are required just for the public if they have to watch it. These things are required by federal law. And these are patterns and wording that has been approved by Mass Association of School Committees and legal counsel that this is the way to address. So it doesn't look like we're just blowing through something without looking at it. These are requirements we have to do. Try to remember that we're on television. Sometimes people don't see what it is that we're doing. That's all. Okay, so then that does bring you to your presentation, the update on Title IX.
Thank you very much. I am providing the slides for this overview for you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Tried to save paper, put them in there, but it's hard to say. So at the conclusion of this, I call it professional development, the teacher may, is that we will be able to define the new terminology of sex-based harassment. The language has changed, and understand the Title IX regulation changes. We previously had been working until August 1st, 2024 under the 2020 regulations. August 1st, we are now following the 2024 regulations. One thing to know though is, in a sense, we are practicing them 2024 for anything that happens after August 1st. If somebody comes forward and says an incident happened prior to that July 1st of 2024, we are operating under the 2020 regulations. It's when the incident occurred. The general themes of this, of the changes that occurred, was it removed barriers to reporting sex discrimination. And I will go over a few slides that talk about the major differences between 20 and 24. And then there's also more flexibility with districts in writing those grievance procedures that Valerie had spoke to earlier, that allowed more flexibility of how a school district would do that versus how small they were or how large they were. So this is probably one of the most important changes that occurred in 2020. Title IX grievances were based on sexual harassment that met the criteria of being severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive. If it did not meet this bar, which is a very high bar, then it would not be a Title IX issue. It would then go down to another level of policy that the school committee had in place, whether that was the gender identity policy or it was the anti-harassment policy. There was a location for it, but Title IX was a very difficult bar to do. What now has occurred in the 2024 is we are using the language sex-based harassment. It's taking it to be sex-based versus sexual, where it was in the past. So this is also including discrimination based on sex stereotypes, sex characteristics. There are added protections for pregnancy for employees and students and related conditions that come from pregnancy. Sexual orientation and gender identity are all now part of Title IX where they weren't before. Also included though is still the other big ones that were under the 2020 regs, which is quid pro quo harassment. I will give you this if you give me that. Sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, And the definition has changed. They're still using the words severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive, but now it can be one of the three. It does not have to have them in combination. It can be severe and or pervasive and or objectively offensive. So this, in a sense, brings the bar down to people who have access to Title I options for them. So it is allowing more conduct to be protected, and it is allowing more people access to Title I. That is a major change for 2024.
I'm sorry, you said Title
9.
9, did I say Title I? Yep, that's where the funding is tied to. Thank you. What we're talking about here is our authority, our scope. In the 2020, what happens in our programs, what happens in our settings is Title IX. There are now incidents where if it is done outside of school on a Saturday somewhere, and they call it the backflow. If that backflow comes into the building, we can be considering it now for Title IX. Because again, Title IX is to make sure that people are not harassed or discriminated against and lose the opportunity to access education. If what happened on a Saturday spills into the school and now it limits access to someone's educational rights, that's why Title IX will now pick it up so that people can have an education. Also, we are now, Title IX is saying that if someone has left us in the past under 2020, if you have left us, you are no longer a student, you're no longer an employee, but you want to come back and say something happened, that was in 2020, not our jurisdiction. You are gone. That's it. Now, 2024 can say, you know what, it's 2 years out. I want to come back and file something. I was in a program. I was part of your institution. So now I can be investigated. My investigation can fall under Title IX.
How far back? Is there a limit?
There is not.
Can I ask another clarifying question too? What if it's an event that's connected to something before 2024 date, but it spills over into the next year?
When the incident occurred, that is the regulations we follow.
Okay.
So it can spill, but if the incident it happened was in the 2020 regs, we will evaluate it based on the 2020 regs.
There isn't, I'm sorry, Katie.
No, that's okay.
There is no time limit? That's, wow, that's, because we actually had one parent, and I think it was before, it might have been before either one of you were on, but who was trying to go back 20 years to his daughter's records to something. And so under this, if someone was coming saying, I had Title IX, claim 20 years old, we'd have to investigate it?
Be under the regulations of which it occurred. So, I mean, I'm talking 2020, I'm not going back 25 years. But what is this, 1972 is, I believe. And then there's regulations, usually with every administration comes another set of Title IX regulations.
It'd be very different, but it is open on information.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And at the same time, as a school district, we're doing 2020 and 2024. Our country is doing 2020s and 2024. There's about 13 states who have had a federal freeze. They have petitioned the federal courts to freeze that they do not want to be under the 2024 regulations. So those states are operating on 2020. There is also communities, there's a group, the Ladies of Liberty, who are Moms of Liberty, who are a protected part of a federal case in one of those 12 states. They can now come petition, they can petition other school districts and say, I am a mom of liberty. My child goes to this school. I don't want to follow the 2024 regulations. That school in that district, the district will be 2024. The school could be 2020. So yes. So there is a lot of multiple layers of which ones you're doing. There are communities right here in Massachusetts locally who are doing that because of Moms of Liberty. Okay, and so
I'm sorry, but
that's okay.
probably 2020 is not as restrictive, so that's why the Moms of Liberty are looking, because it's broader for them to come in for things. Is that a fair?
No, it's harder to get a Title IX investigation started under the 2020 regulations.
I said it the wrong way. 2024 is broader.
Yes,
2020 was much more narrow.
yes.
So this is a way of trying to limit certain people. Okay.
Wow.
And that's, anybody could just ask to have it frozen and
Well, they go to court and the states themselves, the 12 states, petitioned the federal government that they did not want to go under the 2024 regulations. Those states are in a sense frozen, from this, but there was a group named in one of the federal, courts, and that was Moms of Liberty. So they are protected. So if there are Moms of Liberty that live within other areas of the country, they can petition to be underneath that federal regulation.
wasn't one of their, wasn't one of their big things banning books, Moms of Liberty? Wasn't that one of their big,
I'm not sure.
I think it was.
And there are school districts in our community that have Moms of Liberty that have petitioned for the schools. Melinda Phelps has a complete list. So the way that we have to respond to the Title IX is changed as well in 220 and 224. Prior in 220, there had to be a formal complaint. The person would have to take the form, write it all out, give the information, send it to the Title IX coordinator. Now it is easier. The barriers are reduced for people to report this. It no longer has to be a formal written complaint. It does not have to be firsthand knowledge that someone told you directly. What is occurring now is an SPS employee with knowledge of conduct that may reasonably constitute sex discrimination in an education program must respond promptly and effectively. And we're going to talk about in the next slide what that looks like. So before, if someone didn't put the form in and make the formal complaint, you couldn't investigate unless it was something that was very severe and heinous where the Title IX coordinator could step in and file a complaint for them. So all of our employees, Valerie had spoke to the training that all of our employees were going to be taking. This is because all employees are now mandated reporters in Title IX. If they have any reasonable knowledge that there is sex-based harassment, they witness it, someone tells them, they hear about it, all employees must contact if they're in a school, I'll just start with that one. If they're in a school, they must communicate to their building principal. Their building principal is the Title IX coordinator of the building. And so then the next step would be that building principal would complete a form that Melinda's still drafting, that the principal would have to complete and send to me and their CSOs and to Valerie. And then after that, this piece was really talked about with the SEA. They wanted their members to get knowledge if their complaint went somewhere. And so as the Title IX coordinator, once I received that formal that complaint, written complaint from the principal, I then have to communicate back to the member who is the witness, the person who gave that information to the building principal, so that they're aware that their action was completed. After that, then the grievance procedures that are identified on our website, we will start the process with that.
So if, based on what I'm hearing, if there's a situation where somebody knows of a relationship or something that's happening or shouldn't be happening, they don't have to wait for the person who's involved or the victim to now report it. Now somebody can report that this is allegedly happening, it needs to be investigated. Now, how does the confidentiality work in that process? Because if it, just because someone makes a complaint doesn't mean it's legitimate, right? So
Correct.
how does that work as far as the confidentiality and the individual that's being accused?
Sure. And so the grievance process is defined of what the steps that you need to do, and the confidentiality piece of it is there. There are written notifications. There's this initial screening piece to see if there's validity to it, getting more evidence. There is a letter, a notice of this that is sent out if it goes to the next step and does not get screened out. A notice, a letter will go to the complainant and the respondent, notifying these are the things that were noted. Here is what this person has made a statement of, and then that goes back to them to set up a date of meeting. The Title IX process is extremely formal. It's extremely formal. It is when we say our grievance procedures, those were modeled off of the Massachusetts School Committee, which they took theirs off of the templates that the Office of Civil Rights gave.
That level of confidentiality that you're speaking of applies to both the accused and the.
Yes, yes.
And
And in some cases, it doesn't get to that based on the information sometimes, but that doesn't mean that it won't be explored. It might just not be Title IX. It might be a different policy within the Springfield Public Schools that would address that.
now, when the complaints come through, is the discretion as to what happens as the screening process, is that solely upon you, or is there other people that are involved?
Yep, that screening process would be myself, Valerie Williams would be have the information, be made aware of it, the CSO, the building principal, but then it's going back into, and at this time, we have an attorney.
Oh, I have
Yep.
a question. The last question that I have is, with the quid pro quo aspect of it, is that based on a verbal, like, or assumed? Is it, does position have anything to do with that? So if you have a supervisor and you feel that they're pressuring you into something, whether they say it out of their mouth or not, like, is that considered to be something that somebody would come to you for as?
That's, it's, if it's the employee, if the employee feels a certain way that they felt that it was suggested, that person absolutely can report it and we go from there. Anyone who feels that they are being sexually harassed, we can take that information and then each situation is different and work with them to, what do you need? What does this person need to be able to access their educational opportunities and rights within the Springfield Public Schools? Sorry. Just click around here. And so this was part of the notice of non-discrimination that was presented by Valerie of, this will go on every posting that goes out for employment. This will go out in the school handbook. This will go out to all students who are become pregnant, because pregnancy has now been expanded for this and related services. So that means lactation. That means it calls termination falls under that, medical conditions that came after that, to make sure that we make the necessary accommodations for students. This will be handed out to all students. If they need assistance in accommodations, Title IX helps to provide that with the schools. For pregnancy, as I said, lactation, breaks, recovery are now required. All schools will have a lactation room that is required by Title IX, that they must identify a safe, clean, private location that has a chair, a table, and electricity. so that if it's an employee and Holly Januszewski is bringing them back into the workplace, that information is shared with that person. Also, students will have that information if that is needed. We have other acts like the Pump Act and other ones that are there to support this, but now the federal government is saying we are protecting the rights of pregnancy because it is a medical condition. And the last is they spell out retaliation in Title IX for anyone who has made a claim, anyone who may possibly be the person who is receiving the claim against them, that there can be no retaliation. Retaliation is unlawful. You are trying to access your rights under this federal Title IX. And if somebody retaliates against you because of that, those people will be protected. So these are the major changes. It's about 1,000-page document, the Title IX document, but these are some of the high-level changes that are really going to influence our work of who is protected under this, what is protected under this, and then how do we address it timely and effectively.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Well done, ladies. Thank you so much. I can use East Hampton, I can use that too. My concern in terms of respect. The last item is the discussion of the school committee vacant position. The reason that's a discussion item is the committee never did finish its discussion as to whether we were looking at hiring a second attorney, whether the volume of work, or would we look at a firm that specializes in representing school committees. We never finished our dialogue on it. So it would be premature to vote on a position. And we all wanted to be part of that. So I'm reticent for a committee to make the decision without everybody involved. I mean, clearly our attorney spent the vast majority of their day working on departmental issues, not on school committee issues. Will you find somebody to do it part-time who's got the skills you need? I mean, all that stuff we need to hash out. Josiah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if we could possibly ask you, Mr. Roach, if you could look into, what the costs are, if we could figure out, just to look at some numbers, if we were to bring this in-house with salary, taxes, fringe, and benefits, and then also looking at perhaps some of these firms that you mentioned, because I would, personally, my stance on this is we would want legal counsel to assist every meeting, and then also to have some hours that they bill us based on need. But I don't imagine that, I don't know, this is just me, that folks are gonna be, with legal counsel all week. You know what I'm saying? So if you're gonna pay somebody like 200 grand, just looking back at the other public contract that we had with legal counsel, plus taxes, fringes, and benefits, I don't know the answer to that.
I did complete the cost analysis and it's in your packet. It looks like this.
Okay.
So if you wanna, I figured it would be a good starting point for the discussion with the committee on what, you'd like to have done. So what I did was I took some of the duties and requests on, working with Attorney Phelps on what was done in the past and what we thought would happen going forward. Did some estimates in the amount of subcommittee meetings, full committee meetings, special committee meetings, how many hours these things would take. And then I used the hourly rate that we currently pay to Bulkley Richardson. Obviously, if we go out to bid or we do some sort of a solicitation, it could be higher or lower, but I think the important thing, if I'm happy to go out and do the work, but that you make sure that these are the duties and things that seem relevant to what you're looking for.
I would do.
Your in-house counsel, one of the requirements on there, it was to attend all school committee meetings, correct? Or not?
No.
No?
I think they're,
Not for the one we just approved.
So that they're not required to, okay. Cause I don't want to see us paying two attorneys to come to meetings.
That was one of the reasons why we brought it up at the budget and finance meeting, was because we felt that one person being obligated to do all of the district plus all of the stuff for school committee was a lot to put on one
Yeah.
person.
Yeah,
And so the expectation is that this person would take care of these responsibilities, which I agree with. I don't think I see anything that's missing that we would need. I think the final conclusion was whether or not we wanted it to be a person that we hired directly from SPS or if we wanted to outsource.
I was just gonna add, I think this is concerning to me, the as needed basis for the subcommittee meetings. I think the legal counsel should attend all the meetings. I mean, that's what in-house counsel did in the past couple of years that I've been here.
Supposed to.
Yeah.
right. But I mean, if there's a subcommittee meeting that's just approving a grant, do you need to pay a $200 attorney to come here and sit here, or do we gonna trust the finance department? Those are things we do need to talk about. I think that language gives you some flexibility as to what you should do.
I also think certain subcommittees probably warrant more than others. So I would assume that the legislative and contracts and budget and finance are places where we would want to have legal representation, because we're talking about contracts and questions about things that we're not supposed to know by law, as part of our jobs. So we would look for expertise to help us with that piece of it. I do think there may be some that probably don't warrant like vocational subcommittee or something like that.
Curriculum programs, are they gonna need an attorney there? So I don't know that they need to, I said it's as needed is a good way for you to word it. I don't think, I saw this in the packet. When you get up to 50,000, you're not gonna find an attorney with the kind of expertise. That's the one thing that scares me. I don't think you get people to do it part-time. That's why I want the whole committee to talk. We may end up going towards a firm because you want someone who's got some expertise in dealing with school committees and not some attorney that just is looking for a part-time job but we all should be weighing in on it. I'd like to see us do something like a committee of the whole where we can get, everybody said they wanted to talk about the school committee attorney. Let's see if we can get everybody in and actually talk about it.
Well, the thing is, Mr. Collins, I think is expeditious, and that's why I asked the question earlier about our current legal counsel, because if I understand, within the next couple of weeks, we won't have legal representation, and currently we don't have a contract that is signed and approved with anybody, because we said we were going to table it at the last meeting that we had in June. So we still need to revisit any contracts that we're supposed to be having right now with services that I believe are still going on at the moment that we didn't approve. And then we still have to revisit whether or not we want to look at the list of recommended firms that do the kind of work that we are looking for to be done. I agree it should be external. I don't think it should be somebody in-house. But I also think that we need to take a hard look at what those options are, so that we can vet the process accordingly and go through the vendor process that we normally, the procurement process, that we were supposed to go through.
I think that's the way we may go. I'd like to have everybody weigh in on it. And the other thing, we don't want anybody to have divided loyalties. I mean, if they're doing work for the department and that we may be on a difference, do we have that same person doing it or not? Or do we have someone that's gonna be our independent voice? But it's just the three of us here. I wish everybody, if we could do a committee of the whole, and let's get where we really want to go and then move forward rather than do a job description first. And it's just looking at this cost, you're not going to get an attorney with the kind of expertise we're looking for $50,000.
I think there's some consensus, Mr. Collins. I heard from Ms. Naylor and myself that both of us were open to the idea of having an external firm. And I also, I hear what you're saying, Ms. Naylor, that, time is precious, and I agree with you. I think in order for us to do our jobs effectively, I certainly know, I'd pick up the phone and call legal counsel at least a couple times a month to ask about matters before we get in for a vote. So I think we should move on this. I mean, it's not on a voting item today. I don't know which committee would take this. Is this a joint matter, or is this an individual that somebody can take it to the next step of procurement process?
My own opinion is we should schedule very quickly a committee of the whole. Let's get everybody in here. Get a unified understanding. The three of us, I think, I know I agree with both of you that I'm thinking we're going to go outside, but I don't want to speak for 7 people. Let's get everybody together and decide which way we're going.
I just worry about the scheduling side of it. I'm just curious if that's something we can just add to next week's agenda.
The school, this,
The full body meeting.
Just to get a general
for
consensus
discussion,
as a discussion item. Everybody should be there, so I mean, just to get feedback
yes, you could.
and then charge the subcommittee with,
Yeah, I guess you could do that. You could have a general discussion at the full committee.
Mhm.
And then you can pass it off to, all right, go get some proposals and
charge a I'm assuming budget and finance would be charged. I mean, what do you?
if we're going outside, probably. But it would have to be joint again, though. If we're going outside, it's a contract, so it's legislative and contracts as well.
Okay, yeah.
But my thought process is like yours. I don't want to get somebody who just wants to fill a chair and get 50 grand in their pocket. I want someone who's got some expertise who,
Right.
when you call them, they're gonna have an answer.
Okay, so I'll work with Superintendent Dr. Denala and Ms. Terry, and we'll work together to add that to the agenda.
Yes.
That's a good suggestion. We can have that does save a whole step and get the discussion done that way. I guess I'm not thinking as clearly as I was. I like.
We'll give you grace today. Next week, you better be on. Thank you.
Next week, I think I'll be I'm halfway through the medication. It does work. Better than I was. That Paxlow, if the only thing, the doctor did warn me, and he's correct, you taste metal in your mouth all day long.
Before we proceed, let me offer up a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
So live.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.